They say money talks, but power whispers. You're about to hear the story of Declan, a man everyone thought was the trash, until he took out the trash. He was a single dad in a stained jacket, standing in the lobby of the most exclusive hotel in Manhattan, being laughed at by a security guard who thought a suit made him a man. But when Declan rolled up his sleeve, the laughter stopped, because on his wrist wasn't just a watch, it was a death sentence for anyone who stood in his way. This is wrong, man. Buckle up. The rain in New York City doesn't wash the grime away. It just makes the grime slicker. Declan Hart stood under the awning of the Pierre, that ultra-luxury hotel on Fifth Avenue overlooking Central Park. He didn't belong there. Not tonight. The air smelled of expensive perfume, ozone, and the distinct, metallic exhaust of idling limousines. Around him, men in bespoke Tom Ford tuxedos and women dripping in Cartier diamonds were ushered out of the rain by obsequious valets. Declan looked down at himself. He was wearing a canvas Carhartt jacket that had seen better years, dark denim jeans stained with hydraulic fluid from the garage, and heavy work boots. He held a small, pink umbrella, one with cartoon cats on it. It belonged to his 6-year-old daughter, Lily. He wasn't here for the gala. He was here because he had no choice. "Excuse me," Declan said, his voice a low rumble, stepping towards the revolving brass doors. A hand, large and gloved, slammed against the brass frame, blocking his path. "Deliveries are around back, pal," the voice sneered. Declan looked up. The obstacle was a man named Brock. Declan knew the type immediately. He'd seen 1,000 Brocks in his life. 6'4", puffed chest, wearing a security earpiece and a suit that was too tight in the biceps, a vanity fit. Brock was the head of security for the event, employed by Sentinel Global, a private military contractor that had gone corporate. "I'm not a delivery," Declan said calmly. His eyes were the color of gunmetal, tired but sharp. "I have a meeting with Vivian St. Clair in the rotunda." Brock stared at him for a second, then let out a sharp, barking laugh. He turned to the other 2 guards flanking the door. "Did you hear that? The mechanic here has a meeting with Miss St. Clair." The other guards snickered. Vivian St. Clair wasn't just a woman. She was the heiress to the St. Clair banking dynasty and the current CEO of the St. Clair Foundation. She was American royalty. "Look," Declan said, checking his wrist, though the cuff of his jacket covered his watch. "My daughter's scholarship interview was rescheduled. Miss St. Clair's assistant sent me the location an hour ago. I'm late." "Scholarship," Brock repeated, stepping closer, invading Declan's personal space. He smelled of peppermint mints and stale aggression. "Let me guess. The Hardship Fund. Listen to me, grease monkey. Inside that room are people who make more in a minute than you'll make in a lifetime. Senators, tech moguls. The CEO of Goldman Sachs is in there eating canapes. You think I'm letting you in there to beg for pennies?" "I'm not begging," Declan said. The temperature in his eyes dropped 10 degrees. "I'm on the list. Declan Hart." Brock tapped his earpiece, pretending to check, but he didn't press the button. "Nope, no Hart. Now move along before I have you arrested for loitering. Go buy a lottery ticket or something." Declan took a breath. He thought about Lily. She was at home with the neighbor, Mrs. Higgins, clutching her drawing pad, waiting for him to come home with good news. The St. Clair Academy was the only school in the city that could handle Lily's specific needs. Her intellect was off the charts, but she was sensitive. She needed protection. She needed this. "Check the list again," Declan said, his voice dropping to a whisper that cut through the noise of the rain. "Are you deaf?" Brock reached out and shoved Declan's shoulder. It was a hard shove, meant to knock him off balance. Declan didn't move. He didn't even sway. It was like shoving a telephone pole. Brock blinked, confused. He shoved again, harder. "I said beat it!" Declan sighed. "You touched me. You shouldn't have done that." "Or what? You gonna hit me with your daughter's umbrella?" Brock laughed, looking back at his buddies. That was when the black Maybach S680 pulled up to the curb. The back door opened and a woman stepped out. Even in the rain, she was luminous. Vivian St. Clair. She wore an emerald green gown that looked like it cost more than Declan's house. She was holding a clutch, looking stressed, talking into a phone. "I don't care what the board says, Preston. If the security audit fails, we all go to jail. Fix it." She hung up, looking up at the entrance. She froze. She saw the scene, her head of security, Brock, looming over a man in a work jacket. "Problem, Brock?" Vivian asked, her voice crisp, authoritative. "Just taking out the trash, Miss St. Clair," Brock said, straightening his tie, putting on his good employee face. "This vagrant claims he has a meeting with you. Says he's here for a scholarship." Vivian's eyes swept over Declan. She saw the stained jeans, the boots, the pink umbrella. She frowned. She had indeed rescheduled the interview with a Mr. Hart because her schedule blew up, but she expected... Well, she didn't know what she expected. But it wasn't this. "Mr. Hart?" she asked, skeptical. "Miss St. Clair," Declan nodded politely. "I apologize for the attire. I was on a job site when I got the call. I didn't have time to change if I wanted to make it on time." Brock scoffed. "He's lying, ma'am. Look at him. He's probably here to steal silverware. I was just about to toss him." "He has a specific aura," Vivian murmured, mostly to herself. She walked closer, ignoring the rain dampening her hair. "Mr. Hart, I'm afraid the gala has started. It's not appropriate for—" "I don't need a gala," Declan interrupted softly. "I need 5 minutes. For Lily." Brock moved to grab Declan's arm again. "That's it, you're done." Brock's hand clamped onto Declan's forearm. Declan didn't strike. He didn't punch. He simply rotated his wrist, trapping Brock's hand with a leverage point that no ordinary mechanic would know, and stepped forward. With a smooth, fluid motion, he pulled his arm free, but in doing so he rolled up the sleeve of his heavy canvas jacket to the elbow. The movement was sharp, violent, and it revealed everything. The laughter from the guards died instantly. On Declan's left forearm, spanning from wrist to elbow, was a road map of violence. There was a jagged, keloid burn scar that twisted around his muscle like a snake, but overlaying the scar was a tattoo. It wasn't a skull or a dragon. It was a black spear tip inside a geometric compass. The insignia of Task Force 141, but a specific redacted unit known as the Ghosts, a unit that officially didn't exist. But it was what was on his wrist that made Vivian gasp. It wasn't a Timex. It was a Patek Philippe Ref 1518 in stainless steel. Vivian knew watches. Her father collected them. There were only 4 of those watches in the world. The last one sold at auction in Geneva for $11 million. A mechanic with an $11 million watch. Brock saw the scar. He recognized the tattoo from his days in basic infantry, the kind of tattoo belonging to men you ran away from. He turned pale. Declan smoothed his sleeve back down, covering the watch and the scar. He looked at Brock, whose mouth was hanging open. "We done playing?" Declan asked. He turned his gaze to Vivian. 5 minutes. Please." Vivian felt a shiver go down her spine that had nothing to do with the cold rain. She nodded. "Let him in, Brock," she commanded, "and if you touch him again, you're fired." The interior of the Pierre was a different world. Golden light bounced off marble floors. A string quartet was playing Vivaldi in the corner. Declan walked beside Vivian, his work boots squeaking slightly on the polished floor. He could feel the eyes on him, the elites of New York. He saw the whispers behind champagne flutes. Who is the homeless man with St. Clair? Vivian led him away from the ballroom and into a private library suite reserved for the board. She closed the heavy oak doors, shutting out the music. "Whiskey?" she asked, walking to a crystal decanter. She needed a drink. The sight of that watch had rattled her. "Water is fine," Declan said, remaining standing. She poured herself a scotch and handed him a bottle of Voss. She leaned against the mahogany desk, studying him. "You're not a mechanic, Mr. Hart." "I fix cars," Declan said, taking a sip. "I run a shop in Queens. Hart's Auto. Check Yelp. We have 4 stars." "And do you often wear a Patek Philippe while changing oil filters?" Declan's jaw tightened. It was a gift from a previous life. A life that gave you those scars. "We're here to talk about Lily," Declan deflected. "She's 6. She taught herself to read at 3. She can multiply 3-digit numbers in her head. But the public school system is crushing her. She gets bullied because she corrects the teachers. She needs St. Clair Academy." Vivian sighed, rubbing her temples. "Mr. Hart, St. Clair is complicated right now. We have a board of directors who prioritize legacy admissions. Wealthy families. The tuition is $60,000 a year. Even with a scholarship, the incidental fees I can pay," Declan said. "With what? The profits from an auto shop?" Vivian's tone wasn't mocking, just realistic. "I can pay," he repeated, "but I want the scholarship because I want her to earn her place. I don't want her to be the rich kid. I want her to be the smart kid." Vivian put her drink down. "You're a mystery, Declan." "Can I call you Declan?" "Sure. I have a problem, Declan." She walked to the window, looking out at the rain. "My father, the great Alastair St. Clair, passed away 6 months ago. Since then, the wolves have been circling. Preston Hayes, the CEO of Hayes Tech, is trying to initiate a hostile takeover of the foundation. He claims we're hemorrhaging money. He claims I'm incompetent." "And are you?" Declan asked bluntly. Vivian turned, eyes flashing. "No, but someone is leaking information. Private board meeting minutes, financials. Someone on the inside is feeding Preston everything he needs to destroy me. I don't know who to trust." "Why are you telling me this?" "Because," Vivian said, pointing a manicured finger at his wrist, "men who wear that watch with those tattoos, they notice things. Like the fact that my head of security, Brock, checked his phone 3 times while we were talking outside, but never typed a message." Declan's eyes narrowed. He hadn't missed that either. He was signaling. "Exactly," Vivian whispered. "I think my security is compromised. I think Brock is working for Preston Hayes." Declan set the water down. "That sounds like a rich person problem, Miss St. Clair. I just want my daughter in a good school. I can get Lily in," Vivian said. "I can bypass the board. I can sign the admission letter tonight. Full ride." Declan waited. "In exchange for?" "You said you fix things," Vivian said, stepping closer. "I need you to fix my security. Tonight, there's a file, a hard drive, in my father's safe in this hotel suite. I need to get it to the Swiss consulate downtown before midnight. It proves Preston Hayes is laundering money. If I try to leave with it, and Brock really is working for him—" "They'll take it," Declan finished, "and they'll stage an accident. Will you help me?" Declan looked at the desperate woman in the green dress. He looked at the clock. 9 p.m. Lily would be asleep by 9:30. "If I do this," Declan said, "Lily gets in, and nobody looks into my past. No background checks on the father, just the girl." "Deal," Vivian said. "Where's the drive?" Vivian moved to a painting on the wall, a genuine Monet, and swung it aside to reveal a wall safe. She keyed in the code. The heavy door clicked open. She reached in, but her hand froze. "It's gone," she whispered. Declan stepped up beside her. The safe was empty. "Well," Declan said, his voice dropping into that dangerous low register again, "it seems Brock didn't just signal. He made a move." Suddenly the lights in the suite cut out. The room plunged into pitch blackness. The heavy oak doors burst open. 3 men in tactical gear, wearing night vision goggles, stormed in. They weren't hotel security. These were pros. "Get down!" Declan roared. He didn't have a weapon. He didn't need one. He grabbed a heavy crystal bust of Julius Caesar from the desk and hurled it into the darkness. It connected with a wet thud. The first man went down. "Stay behind the desk," Declan ordered Vivian. The second man raised a silenced pistol. The foot of bullets chewed up the mahogany wood inches from Vivian's head. Declan rolled across the floor, moving faster than a man his size should be able to move. He swept the legs of the second gunman, bringing him down hard. Declan was on top of him in an instant, a single punch to the throat silencing the man. He grabbed the falling pistol mid-air, a Glock 19. He spun on his knees, leveling the gun at the third man who was charging. Click. Declan didn't fire. He held the aim. "Drop it," Declan said calmly. The third man froze. The lights flickered back on. The man in the doorway wasn't a gunman. It was Preston Hayes, a man in a sharp Italian suit, holding a remote control for the room's lighting. Behind him stood Brock, looking smug, holding a silver hard drive. "Impressive," Preston said, clapping his hands slowly. "Truly. Who's your pet, Vivian?" Vivian stood up, shaking, smoothing her dress. "He's my consultant." "He's a liability," Preston sneered. He looked at Declan. "You're good, but you're outgunned. Brock has the drive, and I have the police on speed dial. I can have you arrested for assaulting my private security team in, 3 minutes. Preston walked into the room, flanked by 2 more guards. He looked at Declan with amusement. "Here is how this goes," Preston said. "You walk away, Mr. Consultant. You go back to whatever gutter you crawled out of, and Vivian resigns as CEO tonight. Or you go to prison for attempted murder, and your daughter, what was her name? Lily. She goes into the foster system." Declan's face went blank. The mention of Lily was the trigger. He lowered the gun. He set it on the floor. "Smart man," Preston smirked. "Now get on your knees." Declan looked at Vivian. Her eyes were wide with terror. She thought he was surrendering. Declan slowly went down to one knee. He looked at the floor. "You mentioned my daughter," Declan whispered. "What?" Preston asked. Declan looked up. His eyes were no longer human. They were shark eyes. "You threatened my child. That changes the rules of engagement." Declan kicked the gun across the floor, not away from him, but toward Vivian. "Shoot the lights!" he screamed. Vivian didn't think. She grabbed the gun and fired blindly at the chandelier. Glass exploded. The room went dark again, and in the darkness, the billionaire's guard stopped laughing, because the single dad had just gone to war. The darkness in the suite wasn't empty. It was heavy, with the smell of cordite and expensive cologne. When Vivian shot out the chandelier, the room plunged into a chaotic grey, lit only by the ambient streetlights filtering through the rain-slicked windows of Fifth Avenue. Declan didn't need light. He moved by sound. He heard the rustle of fabric to his left, Brock reaching for a weapon. Declan stepped in, his movements silent, masked by the tinkling of falling crystal shards. He didn't strike with rage. He struck with surgical precision. He drove his elbow into the solar plexus of the guard nearest to him, collapsing the man's diaphragm. The guard went down with a wheeze. "Where is he?" Preston Hayes's voice cracked in the dark. "Brock, end him!" Brock lunged, a massive shape in the gloom. He was strong, fueled by steroid aggression, but he fought like a brawler. Declan fought like a ghost. As Brock swung a heavy fist, Declan ducked under the arc. He grabbed Brock's extended arm, using the momentum against him. With a sickening crack, Declan dislocated the head of security's shoulder. Brock howled, dropping the silver hard drive. Declan caught it before it hit the floor. "Vivian, move!" Declan commanded, his voice cutting through the chaos. He grabbed her hand. His grip was rough, calloused, and incredibly warm. He didn't pull her. He guided her, moving them towards the service entrance near the pantry. "My guards are in the hallway!" Preston screamed from the corner, cowering behind a velvet armchair. "You can't leave the Pierre!" Declan kicked the heavy oak service door open. "Watch me!" They burst into the bright, fluorescent-lit service corridor. Waiters carrying trays of shrimp cocktail froze as they saw the heiress to the St. Clair Fortune, barefoot, she had lost her heels, running alongside a man in a blood-spattered Carhartt jacket. "Stairs," Declan said. "Elevators are death traps." They hit the stairwell. Vivian was gasping for air. "Preston, he has the NYPD on payroll. If we go out the front—" "We aren't going out the front," Declan said, not even winded as they descended 10 flights of stairs. They burst out into the loading dock on 61st Street. The rain was torrential now, hammering against the pavement. The alley was filled with delivery trucks and steam rising from the vents. "Where is your car?" Vivian asked, looking around for a limousine or a taxi. Declan pointed to a rust bucket parked illegally behind a dumpster. It was a 1978 Ford F-150, painted a matte black that looked like it had been applied with a spray can. The bumper was held on by sheer willpower and heavy-gauge wire. "You're joking," Vivian said. "It's armored," Declan said, opening the passenger door. The hinge groaned. "Get in." As Vivian climbed into the cab, which smelled of old leather, motor oil, and strawberry candy, the rear exit of the hotel burst open. Brock, cradling his limp arm, stumbled out with 2 other tactical guards. "There!" Brock screamed, pointing at the truck with his good hand. "Shoot the tires!" Declan vaulted into the driver's seat. He didn't use a key. He flipped a custom toggle switch on the dashboard and hit a red button. The engine didn't roar. It screamed. Under the hood of this rusted heap wasn't a standard Ford engine. It was a modified LS7 V8, the kind used in Corvette racing cars, tuned for pure torque. Bullets sparked against the rear tailgate. "Ping, ping! Get down!" Declan yelled, his hand shifting the stick shift with violent speed. He slammed the truck into reverse. The heavy steel bumper, reinforced with an I-beam, slammed into the knees of the lead guard, sending him tumbling into a pile of trash bags. Declan spun the wheel, shifting into first. The rear tires smoked, finding traction on the wet asphalt. The truck fishtailed, then launched forward like a missile, tearing out of the alley and onto Madison Avenue. Vivian was thrown back against the seat. She stared at Declan. His face was illuminated by the dashboard lights. Blood trickled from a cut on his cheek, but his expression was calm. Bored, almost. He checked the rearview mirror. A black SUV, Preston's security, was peeling out of the hotel garage, lights flashing. "They're following," Vivian said, panic rising in her throat. "That's a customized Cadillac Escalade. It's faster than this truck." Declan glanced at her, a small smirk touching his lips. "Miss St. Clair, that Cadillac is a luxury vehicle designed for rappers and soccer moms. This truck was built to run blockades in Kabul. Hold on." He took a hard left onto 57th Street, cutting across 3 lanes of traffic. Horns blared. The Escalade followed, swerving dangerously. "Open the glove box," Declan said. Vivian fumbled with the latch. Inside there was no gun. Just a bag of Haribo Gold Bears, a stack of coloring books, and a heavy remote control with a single switch. "What is this?" "Press it when I say now," Declan said, eyeing the mirror. The Escalade was gaining, coming up on their rear bumper, trying to perform a pit maneuver to spin them out. "Now!" Vivian pressed the button. From the rear bumper of the truck, 2 high-intensity LED floodlights, the kind used for off-road construction, blinded the driver of the Escalade. At the same time, a nozzle hidden in the wheel well sprayed a thick cloud of diesel smoke and oil onto the road behind them. The Escalade driver, blinded and hitting the slick patch, slammed on the brakes. The SUV spun wildly, doing a full 360 before crashing sideways into a parked hot dog stand, fortunately closed for the rain. Declan didn't even look back. He downshifted, weaving through traffic, heading toward the Queensboro Bridge. Vivian stared at the remote in her hand, then at the bag of gummy bears. She looked at Declan. "Who are you?" she whispered. Declan reached into the bag, popped a red gummy bear into his mouth, and drove. "I'm just a dad who's late for bedtime." The adrenaline began to fade as they crossed the bridge, leaving the glittering skyline of Manhattan behind for the industrial shadows of Long Island City. Vivian sat in silence, clutching the hard drive to her chest. Her dress was ruined, her hair was a mess. She had never felt more alive. Declan pulled the truck into an alleyway between two warehouses. A faded sign hung over a rolling metal door. Hart's Auto and Repair. He pressed a clicker on his visor. The door rolled up with a rattle. He drove inside. The interior wasn't just a garage. It was a sanctuary. Classic cars in various stages of restoration sat under halogen lights. A '69 Mustang Boss 429. A vintage Porsche 911. The floor was clean enough to eat off of. Tools were organized on the walls like surgical instruments. Declan killed the engine. The silence was sudden and ringing. "We're safe here," he said. "The walls are lead-lined. No GPS signals get in or out. Preston can't track your phone here." Vivian climbed out, her bare feet cold on the concrete. She looked around. Amidst the machinery there were signs of life. A child's pink bicycle with streamers. A small desk in the corner covered in drawings of planets. "Daddy!" The door to a small office apartment at the back of the garage flew open. A small girl with wild curly hair and glasses, wearing oversized dinosaur pajamas, ran out. Declan dropped to one knee instantly. The hard, dangerous man who had just broken a security guard's arm vanished. In his place was a mountain of softness. "Hey, lil' bit," Declan said, catching her as she jumped into his arms. He buried his face in her neck, inhaling the scent of baby shampoo. "I thought you were asleep." "Mrs. Higgins let me stay up to finish my nebula," Lily said fast, her words tumbling out. "Did you know that the TRAPPIST-1 system has 7 Earth-sized planets?" 7. "That is a lot of planets," Declan agreed seriously. Lily pulled back, adjusting her glasses. She looked over Declan's shoulder and saw Vivian. Lily's eyes went wide. She squirmed out of Declan's arms and walked slowly towards the woman in the emerald dress. "You look like a fairy queen," Lily whispered. Then she tilted her head. "But you're sad and wet." Vivian, disarmed, knelt down to be eye level with the child. "It's raining very hard, sweetie. I'm Vivian." "I know," Lily said matter-of-factly. "I saw you in Forbes. Page 42. The future of philanthropy. Your PE ratio on the charitable trust is down 4% this quarter, though." Vivian blinked, stunned. She looked at Declan. "She reads," Declan shrugged, standing up and taking off his jacket to reveal a black t-shirt that clung to his chest. "Go brush your teeth, Lily. Vivian and I have to talk work." "Okay," Lily said. She turned to Vivian. "Don't worry, my dad fixes everything. He fixed Mr. Henderson's transmission, and he fixed my broken kite. He can fix your PE ratio." Lily scampered off, back into the apartment. Vivian stood up, feeling a sudden wave of exhaustion. "She's incredible." "She's the only thing that matters," Declan said. He walked over to a workbench and cleared a space. "Give me the drive." Vivian handed it over. Declan plugged it into a heavily modified computer tower that looked like it belonged in the NSA, not a mechanic shop. "It's encrypted," Vivian said. 256-bit AEs. We need a key." Declan's fingers flew across the mechanical keyboard. Standard military grade. Sentinels usually use a rolling code based on the date. He paused. "Got it. But there's a secondary lock. Biometric." "Fingerprint?" "Retina," Declan corrected. "Preston's retina." Vivian slumped against the workbench. "So it's useless. We risked our lives for a paperweight." "Not useless," Declan said, turning in his chair. "Just difficult. But before we figure out how to get Preston's eye, you need to get cleaned up. You're shivering." He led her into the small apartment. It was modest, a living room with a worn leather couch, a small kitchenette, and shelves overflowing with books. It was cozy, safe. "Bathroom is through there," he pointed. "I don't have any gowns, but I have clean sweats." 20 minutes later, Vivian emerged. She was wearing Declan's grey sweatpants, rolled up 3 times at the waist, and a vintage Led Zeppelin t-shirt that hung off one shoulder. Her face was scrubbed clean of makeup. Declan was in the kitchen, stirring 2 mugs of hot chocolate. He looked up and paused. For a billionaire heiress who usually wore couture, she looked breathtakingly real. "Here," he said, handing her a mug. "Swiss Miss. The finest vintage." Vivian took it, wrapping her hands around the warmth. They sat on the couch, the distance between them shrinking. "Why?" Vivian asked softly. "Why do you live like this? You have the skills of a super soldier. You have an $11 million watch, but you fix carburetors in Queens." Declan looked into his mug. The silence stretched. "The watch was a gift from a Saudi prince," Declan said quietly. "I saved his son from a kidnapping attempt in Yemen. I didn't want the money. He insisted on the watch. And the scars?" "The scars are from the job I didn't finish," Declan said, his voice hardening. 7 years ago. My unit was compromised. Bad intel. We walked into a trap. I was the only one who walked out." He took a breath, his jaw tightening. "I came home. My wife, Sarah, she was pregnant with Lily. I promised her one more tour, and I was done. But the enemies I made, they followed me home." Vivian gasped. "Oh, Declan." "They rigged my car," he said, staring at the wall. "Sarah borrowed it to go to the grocery store. The brakes failed on the highway." He looked at Vivian, his eyes swimming with a grief so old and deep it looked like bedrock. "They missed me. They got her. Lily was delivered via emergency C-section. She survived. Sarah didn't." Declan took a sip of cocoa, his hand trembling slightly. "So I killed them," he said simply. "All of them. And then I disappeared. I became Declan Hart, the mechanic, because Lily needs a father, not a soldier. I promised her I'd never pick up a gun again." "But you did tonight," Vivian whispered. "For me." Declan turned to her. His gaze was intense, stripping away her defenses. "I did it for Lily's scholarship," he reminded her. But his eyes said something different. Vivian set her mug down. She reached out, her fingers trembling, and traced the scar on his forearm, right over the tattoo. "You're not the wrong man, Declan," she whispered. "You're the only man." The air between them crackled. It was magnetic. Vivian leaned in, her breath hitching. Declan didn't pull away. He leaned forward, drawn to her light. Their lips were inches apart when the computer in the garage let out a loud, piercing beep. Declan pulled back, his reflexes kicking in. "The drive!" He stood up, the moment shattered, but the tension lingering like static electricity. "It cracked the secondary lock?" Vivian asked, following him back into the garage. "No," Declan said, staring at the screen. His face went pale. "Someone is accessing the drive remotely. It has a tracker." "Who?" "Not Preston," Declan said, typing furiously. "The signal is coming from the St. Clair estate." Vivian froze. "My house? But nobody is there except the staff and—" She stopped. Her blood ran cold. "And who?" Declan demanded. "My fiancé," Vivian whispered. "Arthur. He's staying in the guest cottage." Declan looked at her. "Arthur? As in Arthur Vance? The senator's son?" "Yes, why?" "Because," Declan said, grabbing his jacket and tossing Vivian the keys to the truck, "Arthur Vance isn't just a senator's son. Before politics, he was an analyst for Sentinel Global. He used to work for Preston Hayes." Vivian felt the room spin. "Arthur is the leak? He's been betraying me this whole time?" "It's worse than that," Declan said, loading a fresh magazine into the Glock he had taken from the hotel. "If the drive is beaconing to him, he knows we have it. And he knows where we are." As if on cue, the lights in the garage flickered and died. Outside, in the alley, the sound of heavy tires crunched on gravel. Not police sirens. Silence. The silence of professionals. "Go to Lily," Declan ordered, his voice low and lethal. "Get her into the bathtub. Cover her with the Kevlar vest in my closet. Don't come out." "What are you going to do?" Vivian cried. Declan walked to the center of the dark garage. He picked up a massive wrench in one hand and the gun in the other. "I'm going to show them why you don't hunt a ghost in his own graveyard." The first window didn't shatter. It melted. A thermal breach charge hissed against the reinforced glass of the skylight, glowing cherry red before the pane gave way. 2 canisters dropped from the ceiling, clattering onto the concrete floor of the garage. Pop, hiss, thick white CS gas, military-grade tear gas, began to fill the workspace. Declan didn't panic. He reached under the counter and grabbed a 3M full-face respirator, the kind used for painting cars, and strapped it on. He didn't have one for Vivian or Lily, which meant he had to end this before the gas seeped under the apartment door. He killed the main breaker. The garage went pitch black, save for the eerie green glow of the enemy's laser sights cutting through the smoke. Thump, thump, thump. 3 boots hit the ground. They had rappelled in. Declan was crouching behind the chassis of the '69 Mustang. He held a heavy wrench in his left hand and the Glock in his right. But he didn't fire. Gunshots were loud. They gave away position. He watched the lasers sweep the room. These men were good. They moved in a phalanx formation, checking corners. "Clear left," a voice crackled over a radio. "Clear right. Target is likely in the residence." They were moving towards the apartment door where Vivian and Lily were hiding. Declan moved. He didn't charge them. He reached up and yanked a release chain on the wall. Above the lead mercenary, a suspended engine block, a massive V8 being prepped for a swap, dropped 3 feet. It didn't hit the man, but the heavy steel chain snapped taut with a deafening clang right next to his ear, stopping inches from his skull. The mercenary flinched, spinning around, firing a burst of bullets into the ceiling. "Contact rear!" In that split second of distraction, Declan slid across the oil-slicked floor like a baseball player stealing home. He swept the legs of the rear guard with the wrench. Bone crunched. The man went down screaming. Declan was on him, silencing him with a precise strike to the temple. He grabbed the man's flashbang grenade from his vest, pulled the pin, and rolled it toward the other 2. "Fire in the hole!" one yelled. Boom! The flash was blinding even through the smoke. The concussion rattled the tools on the walls. Declan stood up in the chaos. He didn't shoot. He walked through the smoke like a phantom. He grabbed the second man by the tactical vest and threw him into a stack of tires, following up with a knee to the helmet. The visor cracked. The man went limp. The leader, disoriented but still standing, swung his rifle around. Declan stepped inside the guard, batting the barrel away with his forearm. He headbutted the leader, the hard composite of Declan's mask slamming into the mercenary's night vision goggles. The leader stumbled back, dropping his rifle. He pulled a combat knife. "You're dead, Hart," the leader growled. Declan stripped off his gas mask. The gas burned his eyes, but he needed peripheral vision. He tossed the mask aside. "You're in my house," Declan snarled. The mercenary lunged. Declan sidestepped, grabbed the man's wrist, and slammed it down onto the workbench. With his other hand, Declan grabbed a pneumatic nail gun connected to the air compressor. Phut! He fired a 3-inch framing nail through the mercenary's sleeve, pinning his tactical jacket to the heavy wooden table. The man roared, trying to pull free, but he was stuck. Declan grabbed a canister of brake cleaner and a Zippo lighter. He flicked the lighter open. "Who sent you?" Declan asked, holding the flame near the flammable spray. "Go to hell!" "I've been there. It's humid." Declan brought the flame closer. "Was it Arthur Blake?" The mercenary's eyes widened. "I don't know names, just a location. We were told to clear the site and retrieve the drive. Who is the handler?" "Blake, it's Blake. He's at the estate. He's liquidating everything tonight." Declan extinguished the lighter. He slammed the butt of the pistol into the man's head, knocking him unconscious. The silence returned to the garage, broken only by the hiss of the compressor. Declan ran to the apartment door and threw it open. Vivian was sitting in the empty porcelain bathtub, her arms wrapped tight around Lily. Both of them were covered by the heavy Kevlar vest. Lily was shaking. tears streaming down her face behind her glasses. "Is it over?" Vivian asked, her voice trembling. Declan looked at them, the two worlds he was trying to keep separate, now colliding in the most violent way possible. "For now," Declan said. He reached out and brushed a curl of hair away from Lily's forehead. "I'm sorry, baby. I'm so sorry." "Did you win, Daddy?" Lily asked, her voice small. "Yeah, lil bit. I won." He looked at Vivian. "We have to go. They'll send a cleanup crew next, and this time they'll just bomb the building." "Where?" Vivian asked, climbing out of the tub. "The police are compromised. The hotel is a trap. My accounts are frozen." Declan walked into his bedroom and pulled a loose floorboard up from the corner. He pulled out a black duffel bag and a set of keys. "We're going to the one place they won't expect us to hit them," Declan said. "We're going to the St. Clair estate." "But Arthur is there," Vivian said, "with an army." Declan slung the bag over his shoulder. It clanked with the sound of heavy metal. "Good," Declan said, a dark grimace crossing his face. "Save me the gas money of hunting him down." The St. Clair estate in the Hamptons wasn't a house. It was a fortress of glass and steel perched on a cliff overlooking the Atlantic Ocean. It was designed by a famous Japanese architect to look like a crystal shard jutting out of the earth. At 2 a.m., the storm had passed, leaving a thick, rolling sea fog that blanketed the coast. Declan parked the truck 3 miles down the road, deep in the woods. "Stay here," Declan told Vivian. "Lock the doors. If I'm not back in an hour, take the truck and drive to the address I wrote on this paper. It's a safe house in Vermont." Vivian grabbed his arm. "No. Vivian?" "No, Declan. That is my house. That is my legacy they are stealing. And Arthur, he was my fiancé. He looked me in the eye and told me he loved me while he was stabbing me in the back. I need to look him in the eye when he falls." Declan looked at her. She was still wearing his oversized Led Zeppelin shirt and sweatpants, but her jaw was set in stone. She looked like a queen in exile, ready to reclaim her throne. "And Lily?" Declan asked. Lily was asleep in the back seat, curled up with her pink umbrella. "She sleeps like the dead once she's out," Declan muttered. He covered the windows with sunshades to hide the interior. He locked the truck with the remote. "The alarm is silent. If anyone touches the handle, I'll know." "Okay," Declan said, handing Vivian a small earpiece. "Put this in. You do exactly what I say. If I say run, you run. If I say duck, you duck. Understand? Understood." They moved through the woods, the wet leaves dampening their footsteps. They reached the perimeter wall, 12 feet of smooth concrete topped with cameras. "The cameras are on a looped network," Declan whispered. He tapped on a wrist-mounted computer, a tactical gauntlet he had pulled from his duffel bag. "I'm injecting a signal. We have 10 seconds where we are invisible." He laced his fingers together. "Up!" Vivian stepped into his hands, and he launched her upwards. She caught the top of the wall and scrambled over, dropping onto the wet grass on the other side. Declan vaulted over effortlessly behind her. The estate grounds were patrolling with armed guards. Dogs, Belgian Malinois, strained at leashes. "Dogs," Declan hissed. "Wind is in our favor, but not for long." He reached into his pouch and pulled out a small device that looked like a dog whistle, ultrasonic emitter, he whispered. "It mimics the frequency of a pained alpha. It'll confuse them, make them submissive." He pressed the button. Across the lawn, 2 guard dogs suddenly whined and sat down, tails between their legs. The handlers yanked the leashes, confused. "Move!" Declan signaled. They sprinted across the open lawn, using the shadows of the topiaries for cover. They reached the side of the main house, the glass house. Inside, through the floor-to-ceiling windows, they could see the living room. It was a scene of betrayal. Arthur Blake sat in Alistair St. Clair's favourite leather armchair, a glass of cognac in his hand. He was laughing. Sitting across from him was Preston Hayes. Servants were packing paintings into crates. They were stripping the house. "The wire transfer is complete," Preston was saying, his voice carrying through the glass. "The Foundation's assets are now in the Cayman account. By morning, St. Clair Corp will be a shell. And Vivian? Arthur asked, swirling his drink. He was handsome in a slimy, polished way. Any word from the clean-up crew? Silent, Preston said, which usually means done. She's probably at the bottom of the East River by now. Pity, Arthur sighed. She really did have great taste in art. Shame she was so soft. Outside the glass, Vivian trembled with rage. Declan put a steadying hand on her shoulder. Easy, he whispered. Anger makes you sloppy. We need cold. How do we get in? Front door, Declan said. What? They think you're dead. Let's use that. Declan moved to the main power junction box on the side of the house. He placed a small charge of C4 plastic explosive on the hinges. When I blow this, the power goes out. The backup generators take 30 seconds to kick in. In those 30 seconds, I clear the room. You walk in when the lights come back on. Like a ghost? Vivian asked. No. Declan pulled a black balaclava over his face. Like a nightmare. Boom! The charge detonated. The house went dark. Inside, screams erupted. Get the lights! Preston screamed. Secure the exits! Arthur yelled, dropping his glass. Declan shattered the sliding glass door with a breaching hammer. He stepped into the room. It was chaos. Guards were clicking on flashlights, beams cutting through the darkness. Declan moved through the beams. He was a shadow among shadows. He disarmed a guard, using the man's own body as a shield against incoming fire. He threw a knife, not to kill, but to pin Arthur's sleeve to the armchair, just like he had done in the garage. Arthur shrieked, pinned to the chair. Declan swept the legs of another guard, spinning and delivering a roundhouse kick to a third. The generator hummed. The lights flickered, then blazed back to life. The scene was frozen. 4 guards lay groaning on the floor. Preston Hayes was cowering behind the sofa, holding a small pistol with shaking hands. Arthur Blake was pinned to the chair, clutching his bleeding arm. And standing in the center of the room was Declan, his chest heaving slightly, the balaclava pulled off to reveal his scarred, furious face. You missed, Declan said to Preston. Preston raised the gun. I won't miss this click, the sound of a hammer striking an empty chamber. I counted, Declan said dryly. You fired 6 shots at the ceiling when the lights went out. Panic fire. Amateur. Preston dropped the gun, terrified. Who are you? Arthur gasped, staring at the mechanic. I'm the help, Declan said. He stepped aside. The front doors swung open. Vivian St. Clair walked in. She was dirty. She was bruised. She was wearing sweatpants, but she looked terrifying. She walked straight up to Arthur, who was trembling in the chair. Vivian, Arthur stammered. Baby, wait, I can explain. Preston, he forced me. He threatened me. Vivian looked down at him. She looked at the crates of stolen art. She looked at the laptop displaying the offshore bank transfer. You called me soft, Arthur, she said, her voice ice cold. She picked up the glass of cognac he had dropped. She splashed it into his face. I'm not soft, she whispered. I'm just getting started. She turned to Declan. Tie them up, then call the police. The real police. I have the commissioner's private number. Wait, Preston yelled. You can't prove anything. The money is gone. The drive is encrypted. Declan pulled the silver hard drive from his pocket. He held it up. Actually, Declan said, while you guys were congratulating yourselves, my computer finished brute forcing your biometrics. Or rather, I realized I didn't need your eye. What? Preston blinked. The password wasn't your retina, Declan smirked. It was the date of the first bribe you took. January 12th, 2015. Predictable. Preston's face went white. Vivian pulled out her phone. Commissioner, it's Vivian St. Clair. I have a delivery for you. And bring a SWAT team. We have some trash to take out. Just as the sirens began to wail in the distance, a small voice came from the shattered glass door. Daddy? Declan spun around. Lily was standing there, rubbing her eyes, holding her pink umbrella. I woke up, she said. The truck was lonely. She looked around the room, at the unconscious guards, the tied-up billionaires, and the shattered glass. "Did you fix it?" Lily asked. Declan walked over and scooped her up, hugging her tight. He looked at Vivian, who was smiling at them through her tears. "Yeah, baby," Declan said, kissing her forehead. "We fixed it." 6 months later, the freezing rain of that fateful night had been replaced by the soft, golden warmth of a Manhattan spring. The headlines had been ruthless, dominating the news cycle for weeks. Billionaire fraud exposed by mechanic, followed by images of Preston Hayes and Arthur Blake being led out of the St. Clair estate in handcuffs. They were currently trading their bespoke Italian suits for state-issued orange jumpsuits, facing 20 years for corporate espionage, racketeering, and attempted murder. Declan stood on the balcony of the St. Clair Foundation, overlooking the garden. Down below, Lily was laughing, chasing a butterfly. She wore the navy blue blazer of the St. Clair Academy. She wasn't the weird kid anymore. She was the class president of the first grade, a prodigy thriving in an environment that finally understood her. "She looks good in blue," Vivian said, stepping up beside him. She wasn't wearing armor today, nor the ruined ball gown of that night. She wore a simple, elegant sundress. She looked younger, freer, the weight of her father's legacy finally secure on her shoulders. "She loves the school," Declan said, leaning his elbows on the marble railing. He wasn't wearing his stained Carhartt jacket. He was wearing a tailored charcoal suit, a gift from Vivian, though he still wore his heavy work boots. Some habits died hard. "And you?" Vivian asked, resting her hand gently on his forearm, her fingers tracing the fabric that covered his scar. "Do you miss the quiet life? Being invisible?" "Heart's auto is busier than ever," Declan smiled, turning to face her. The darkness that had haunted his eyes for 7 years was gone, replaced by a calm, steady light. "But I think I like this life better. It has better company." Vivian looked up at him, her eyes softening with an emotion she no longer tried to hide. "They called you the wrong man, Declan. The guard, Preston, Arthur, they all looked at you and saw nothing. But you were the only one who could save us." Declan leaned in, his forehead resting gently against hers. He smelled of soap and engine oil, a scent that had become Vivian's favorite smell in the world. "I'm just a dad, Vivian," he murmured. "No," she whispered, closing the small distance between their lips. "You're home." As they kissed, overlooking the city they had conquered together, Declan checked his wrist. The Patek Philippe caught the sunlight. He wasn't late. For the first time in a long time, he was exactly where he was supposed to be. And that is the story of Wrong Man. From the rain-soaked streets of Queens to the high-stakes cliffs of the Hamptons, Declan proved that a man's worth isn't found in his bank account, but in what he's willing to protect. It turns out the trash the billionaire wanted to take out was the only thing solid enough to stand the storm. If you enjoyed this roller coaster of action, romance, and justice, please smash that like button. It really helps the channel grow and lets us know you want more epic stories like this one. What was your favorite moment? The garage siege, or when Vivian finally took her power back? Let me know in the comments below. And don't forget to subscribe and hit the bell notification so you never miss a new upload. Thanks for watching. And remember, never judge a book by its cover or a mechanic by his jacket. See you in the next story.